All right, we're just getting ready to get started. We'll kind of wait for people to kind of fill in the room and we will get started momentarily. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. I'm just going to give it another quick minute. We're starting to get that heat dome out here in Philadelphia, Brad. I don't know what to expect today, but I think I'm going to miss the 75-degree weather.
Yeah, I'm guessing that what we had in Chicago yesterday is making its way out east. So
Not
yeah,
ready for
brace
it.
yourself. Brace yourself. It was 102 in my backyard yesterday.
Oh,
Uh,
that's hot even for
and like I
Chicago,
said,
especially for June.
it was, yes.
Well, awesome. I think we can kind of go ahead and get started here. I know people are joining us, and just kind of wanted to say welcome. Yeah, I appreciate you spending your time with us, and thought we'd kind of just go ahead and jump in. So,
Yeah, let's do it.
awesome. So as small law firms, you're probably facing some unique trends in the legal industry these days. These trends are evolving quicker with each passing year, I think, especially with that onset of the pandemic. So today, Brad, Barkin, and I are going to talk about some of the ways that you can consider navigating these trends and then uncover several tactics that you can use to really find success in today's legal industry. So we'll explore some of the key elements that can transform your practice, from exceptional service to innovative systems and even those robust security measures. So whether you've already started kind of implementing some of these strategies or you're looking for new ways to enhance your firm, we're glad you joined us today. So before diving in too far, wanted to kind of cover just a couple quick housekeeping items. First is we are recording this conversation. So feel free to take as many notes as you like, but know that you'll have access to this recording kind of later this week. We'll email it out to everybody. And then also we do have a Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen. So as we're kind of having a conversation today, if you have any questions, please feel free to kind of drop those in our chat and we'll try and reserve some time there at the end to kind of get through to those. And so with no further ado, let's get started by introducing our speakers. And so my name is Libby Luff. I am the Strategic Partnership Manager here at PracticePanther. And that ultimately means that I get to work with state and local bars and with legal organizations really across the country on ways that we can help support lawyers on how they can efficiently and effectively manage their practice. So I come to you with about 15 years of experience in sales, marketing, and operations. And so my goal is to kind of turn these strategic challenges into untapped opportunities for your firm. And today I wanted to kind of introduce you to Brad Barkin. He's the VP of Law and Accounting Practices for Embroker. And I'll kind of let him talk about what that means and what he does with Embroker.
Sure, thanks, Libby. So again, Brad Barkin at Embroker. I am fortunate enough to head up the law firm practice at Embroker. Embroker is an insurance provider to a few different industry verticals, predominantly tech companies, and then secondly, law firms and accounting firms. So I head up our team, which includes everything from helping the thousands of clients, law firm clients that we have in place today, for their risk management needs, placing their insurance, and helping them with questions they might have throughout the year.
Awesome. And that might cover part of your slide here, but I didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, I could. So more broadly, Embroker is an insurance provider. Like I said, we focus on a couple of different industry verticals and have been fortunately very successful in those things. We're a venture-backed company, so we've taken a lot of the funds that we've raised and implemented it in technology to make the buying process of insurance just a little bit less painful, a little bit easier, without sacrificing anything related to servicing or coverage. So firms come to us, thousands of firms across the country come to us because of frankly, they have to have insurance most of the time. They usually don't like buying it, and they want to have peace of mind, get some good expertise, and get it done in a way that gives them peace of mind and protects their firm going forward. firms can come to us and get all their lines of coverage done in one place. We see there on the right side is kind of a snippet of what it looks like when a law firm goes to the flow, gets quotes ready. Some firms come to us and it's very easy and they don't need to talk to anybody. They don't want to. Others have lots of questions and want a little more hand holding because their needs are a little more complex, and we're happy to do those things too. So that's us, Embroker. I'm based here in Chicago. We've got a team of folks who are kind of spread out throughout the country, and fortunate to be servicing the legal space.
Fantastic. Yeah, we've been partnering with Embroker for several years now and have really enjoyed the service and the value they bring to our customers. So appreciate that. And so for those of you joining who may not be super familiar with PracticePanther, we're the all-in-one legal practice management solutions really focused on helping small, solo and small firms really across all practice areas. You know, we're the most intuitive and easy to use software on the market. Lawyers are using practice management software every day, at least I hope. So it should be making your lives easier. It should be pretty to look at and it should be easy to use. And so with PracticePanther here, you can enjoy seamless case management. And that's going to link your contacts, your matters, and even your documents, whether you're in the office or you're on the go. You can automate your workflows so you know what tasks need to be accomplished by when. You can tag and offer kind of a comprehensive understanding of crucial client details. So with tags, you can even go beyond identifying your lead sources. You can actually talk about practice areas. You can tag client communication preferences and even lead stages so you can really access those in-depth analytics. And then also we have those built-in compliant payments. So that way you can go digital with your billing and then even get paid faster.
Yeah, Libby, I'll add that kudos to you all because we've sent over a few small law firms as they start getting onboarded. They often come to us for insurance first and then have to buy software second, and rave reviews for PracticePanther in terms of like ease of use and functionality.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And so we'll kind of dive into the discussion. Let's start by highlighting some of the trends that the small law firms are encountering. We kind of spoke about that a little bit on the first slide. And so over the past few years, you know, your landscape has evolved pretty significantly, and understanding these dynamics will be crucial for navigating the market effectively today. So one of the big topics that we're going to be talking about exploring will be how to address these new trends when it comes to scalability. So to compete with some of these larger firms, smaller firms must kind of remain agile and flexible. And a small firm's ability to scale effectively will actually be at the heart of staying competitive. After that, you know, third, we're going to analyze the current landscape for small law firms. We'll highlight some of the perceived advantages that larger firms might enjoy, but more importantly, we're going to dispel a few common myths about smaller firms. You know, understanding both of these issues will be important so you can better leverage your firm's resources and then, you know, turn these perceived limitations into strengths. Next, we'll talk about small firms and what they need to adopt when it comes to competing with larger firms. It'll actually bring us to the main topic of our conversation today, the 4 winning tactics that really help small firms kind of punch above their weight class and carve out a successful niche in this market. And then we're going to wrap the conversation today by establishing a foundation for risk reduction and process improvements. And we'll kind of highlight the benefits of being a PracticePanther and Embroker customer as well. And so we'll get started kind of here with the overall legal landscape. You know, small firms, as we talked about, face unique circumstances shaping their business environment. So while you may operate with leaner resources compared to your larger firms, you also enjoy some distinct advantages that turn potential challenges into opportunities for success and even firm growth. So one key strategy to navigate these trends and capitalize on opportunities, as I mentioned, is going to be scalability. And so in this section, we really want to highlight some current trends observed by small law firms and explore opportunities for scaling that you can leverage. Let's start by talking about some of these top trends. You know, I'm talking with law firms, you know, across the country. I get to collaborate with bars and legal associations, like I means I get to do a lot of visiting with law firms across the country. And there's been several recurring themes that kind of come up in our conversations. And so to build a successful law firm, especially a small law firm, it's important to kind of discuss some of these key areas and recognize and understand that these trends provide small firms with kind of insight to compete. And so I kind of wanted to get started here in the top left with this market competition. There's almost 500,000 law firms across the country. Luckily, they are not all your direct competition, but the market is undeniably saturated. Small firms must strategically differentiate themselves to stand out. And so about a half of small firms surveyed are showing a concern around the growing competition posed by these larger firms. And, competing with them is turning into a little bit of a challenge for their practice. So to stay ahead, what we're seeing small firms doing is they're really building a strong online presence and detailing the services they provide, from their websites to social medias to really filling out their Google My Business page. Kind of really having that strong online presence is going to be really important when people are searching for your services. We're also finding they're specializing really in niche areas, kind of really set them apart. And then they're leveraging legal management software to become more efficient, which will be a common theme you hear about kind of in our presentation today. Well, after market competition, it's really about talent acquisition and retention. So whether you're a true solo or maybe you're a small firm using subscription services, part-time staff, or maybe even a full-time staff, it's important that firms consider talent acquisition and retention. It's going to be an important part because larger firms, they've been trying to attract this top talent with high salaries. I think everybody's been hearing this conversation over the last couple of years. And it's driving small firms to get creative in their talent acquisition. So what we're finding are that our small firm customers are providing really a supportive environment. It focuses on and promotes really their career growth. Small firms lean into flexible work environments and schedules, especially that hybrid work schedule has been great for small business. And they also are more meaningful when it comes to client interactions. But I don't want to kind of drop off salaries either, because what's really been interesting in the course of 2022 to 2023 is we actually saw an increase in first-year associate salaries by 30% for small firms. So they're kind of getting in that salary game, but then they're also getting a little bit more creative with attracting that talent. And then when it comes to client expectations, this will be another common theme kind of throughout the presentation, because these expectations have shifted. Clients are now seeking greater involvement in their legal matters, and small firms are meeting client expectations by providing this personalized, cost-effective, and transparent services. We find a lot of our customers and their clients are enjoying the convenience and security of a client portal when it comes to sharing important details. And portals allow for improved customer service and that 24/7 access, which means clients can find answers to their needs, they can submit documents, they can even pay bills outside of your office hours, which is really, really important. And then when it comes to automation and innovation, what initially began as kind of expensive and cumbersome and restricted to on-site use for law firms, it's evolved dramatically since, the late 90s, let's say. Legal technology and software, it's becoming increasingly accessible, it's adaptable, it empowers small firms to maximize their returns through the use of automation. Automation can now span CRMs, case management, billing, and even client engagement with really affordable options that are out there. So when law firms first focus on automating everyday repeatable tasks, then you can really start freeing up some of that time to tackle this more high value work. And then I wanted to kind of pass it over to Brad and kind of talk about risk assessment for a moment.
Yeah, sure. And Libby, I would add on the automation innovation, we spend a lot of time here at Embroker talking and looking at what's going on in the legal tech space more broadly. And it is super cool. Like some of the innovations that are coming out there, everybody talks about AI. It's certainly prevalent in the legal tech space as well. A lot of small companies creating technology for the small firm to be able to use. So that's really, really neat to see. And if folks aren't looking into that, they automate because it increases efficiencies and even quality of work. I would say before I get to risk, that too goes to client expectations, because we've seen a big uptick from hearing from our clients in what clients expect. So clients are expecting, I think, to some extent, depending on where you're at in the country and what kind of practice areas you have, they expect efficiencies, they expect to be ready and responsive, and they expect a very, very high bar in terms of quality of expertise that you're providing. And then that kind of dovetails for me certainly into risk. So for firms today, and again, nobody likes the fun stuff is talking about innovation and technology and automation and retaining talent and competing. but with that part and parcel of practicing a law firm, is understanding that there's going to be some risk involved, whether it's the technology that you're using or usually related to kind of cyber liabilities that are out there, or just like somebody at the firm screwing up, right, and a claim coming through. So part of what we're going to talk about here is just making sure that you're buttoned up in terms of upfront protecting your risk, and then on the back end, how to protect it so that if something does go astray, then it's not really a concern, but you've got the right tools in place.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of bring back forward what you said a little bit earlier, how, some firms come to you and they don't need anything. They fill out the form, they're ready to go, and others come to you and they ask all these questions. And I think that's really important to kind of focus on for a second is, if you as a law firm, you don't know how to move forward or what LPL to get or what insurance is best for your firm, connecting with these reputable experts like Brad, it'll not only be great for your law firm, but it'll help you kind of foster that client trust too, that you're secure, that you're protecting all of that client information. And so reaching out to Brad with your questions and his team, they've been super helpful for our customers. And I wanted to kind of reiterate that.
Thank you.
So scalability. So, it's really a crucial aspect that all small law firms need to understand, as it really determines your ability to take on new clients without compromising efficiency or even service quality. So when it comes to scalability for small law firms, I really think about it in two different areas. First, on the left, you're going to see it's about improving your processes for maximum efficiency. This means improving how you are currently accomplishing your tasks within your processes or within your workflows. To improve your firm performance, you need to optimize these processes. You need to remove pain points or bottlenecks, because that'll be crucial for making efficient use of time and resources. And for those small firms who have, the luxury of having one or two staff members, really reaching out to them, they're working in your process every day as well. And they could give you some really vital information about, some pain points you could remove or bottlenecks that you could remove as well. And then once you've gotten that efficiency down, then the second is really about facilitating growth. So once you streamline your processes, your firm can really expand its influence and take on more clients without sacrificing that quality of service. So scalability really hinges on improving your current systems and the processes in place at your practice. So as you look to scale, I want to focus in on one of the biggest benefits small firms enjoy, and it's that adaptability. The adaptability allows small firms to really pivot their strategies, and also really even adjust service offerings, as the trends come, they come and go. You can actually respond promptly, what trends you want to take on, or what shifts in the legal industry that you can meet. Adaptability is going to be really key for you, and it's a significant competitive advantage to fuel scalability, and it enables you to kind of stay ahead of the curve. And so wanted to before we get into the tactics on how you can compete, I wanted to discuss some of the big law and how to maybe break down some of their perceived advantages. And so starting with this slide, I wanted to launch with big budgets. I think we can all agree it can significantly impact all the other categories you really see on this slide. But what I also want to counter is that managing big budgets requires careful oversight. There's a lot of avoiding inefficiencies and potential waste when it comes to larger budgets. So for small firm, thinking about your effective problem solving, it often involves addressing those root issues rather than just, throwing money at the problem. And so I think that's a really big thing, is understanding maybe why you're needing to invest more money, and looking at that root problem may prevent you from having to spend. And then that staffing advantage, having access to a larger staff to accomplish more. It seems like that could be a really great benefit, but it can actually be much harder to iterate and change when the industry changes. So you can lean into your smaller team, the expertise they bring, and the personalized service that you provide. We find that when small law firms staff leverages technology to stay competitive, as Brad mentioned, they're automating these administrative needs, these intake processes, appointment reminders, drafting documents is huge, and even those billing needs, which leads us into these premium client experiences, and several key premium experiences that clients value nowadays It's going to be that 24/7 accessibility. It's going to be access mobile communication and being able to communicate on their mobile phone. And then offering these digital payments, being able to pay a little bit easier and maybe even more affordably with payment plans. So small firms can effectively complete in all of these areas utilizing legal tech. And however, what kind of sets you apart is really, again, that ability to provide the personalized attention, the flexibility, these approachable fee structures, and then, a little bit more rapid response time from lawyers. You guys small firms are great at building trust through this direct attorney-client interaction and a commitment to understanding and meeting client needs effectively. And Brad,
Maybe I would just add, no, I was going to say, I mean, I had some similar talking points. And we've seen small firms who do this well and lean into technology really kind of punch above their weight. And so when they're servicing some of their clients, big or small, there's really no concern, right? Because the lead attorneys can still give their premium client experience, and they know that, to the client, that it's going to be that lead attorney who is actually available. They're not kicking it down to some junior staffer. And then with technology, the staffing advantage kind of goes away, right? Because the small firm can appear to have just as deep of a bench and be just as responsive. And then on robust security and technology, I mean, similarly, so many of the tools that are available today, small firms, if they do things right, just as secure, provide just as good a technology experience as the bigger firm does. And again, probably far more responsive on the small firm side than having to kind of deal with a host of folks from a large firm and having to pay for all those folks at the large firm.
Mm-hmm. And so kind of when we are getting through on the perceived advantages, there's also a couple of myths that we wanted to kind of talk about, geared a little bit more towards small law firms. So the first one is that technology is too costly and complex for smaller firms to adopt. And, despite maybe misconceptions, legal tech adoption really isn't beyond the reach of small firms. Leveraging cost-effective solutions, user-friendly interfaces, and really focusing on your efficiency gains, small firms use technology to actually boost their productivity, improve profit margins, and really gain that competitive advantage. Couple quick examples within PracticePanther. We actually, a lot of our customers are loving kind of what we call our money finder feature. And so this allows you, whether it's the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, kind of however you are working on your billing, it allows you to go through all of your tasks and find out if there was a meeting or an email or a phone call that you forgot to bill for. And it allows you to immediately bill for that and add it to your invoice. And so we've had customers say that utilizing kind of this money finder feature, it actually pays for their software kind of with one single client sometimes. And so kind of utilizing those, you can find maybe some lost billable hours and really help on improving your realization rates and things like that. Another one is that, PracticePanther saves a lot of our customers almost up to 8 hours each week and that's those kind of redundant administrative tasks. They're getting more work done in less time. And so at a minimum, if you're charging $250 an hour, that can be up to $2,000 in savings and time reinvested each week into kind of higher value tasks. Another myth we hear is about clients maybe, choosing the reputation of larger firms. And again, while larger firms have that established reputation, small firms are finding valuable benefits that clients are looking for. It's that personalized service, it's your specialized expertise, and cost effectiveness is a really big one. And small firms excel in all of those. Studies are showing that clients prioritize factors like a direct attorney access and transparent communication over actual firm size and reputation alone. And then that final myth, I want to let Brad cover that one real quick.
Sure. Yeah, the myth of reduced exposure to legal liabilities. Unfortunately, I could tell you that is false. So there's, small firms, unfortunately, because they're running in so many different directions, often can spread themselves a little bit too thin, and so the exposure is always there. In fact, like small firms and large firms on a per attorney basis probably get sued for malpractice about the same. And cyber the strange trend that we've seen, and moreover, not just us, but the insurance carriers and folks who are monitoring this at all times, is that kind of the cyber criminals are going after now the smaller companies, mainly because the cyber criminals look at them as low hanging fruit and an easy target. So it's much harder for them to penetrate, a huge, you know, or the thousand employee type of company than it is to penetrate somebody who's got just a handful of folks. And they can do that at scale. So unfortunately, that's still very prevalent. And then Libby, I was going to ask you on your box at the top that implementing the technology being too complex. I hear that from firms too. Like sometimes, again, with us, they'll come to us and they'll buy a lot of firms buy insurance first, and then part of the conversation, they're sometimes asking us like who we like for software and this and that. And a hesitation is that hey, I don't have time to mess around with getting software in place now because it just takes me too much time and I have too much other stuff to do. How hard is that? I'm curious. Like, what's the workload? What's the investment in terms of like getting the LPM implemented and up and running?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And what's cool with PracticePanther is we actually support you every step of the way. So whether maybe you're transferring from another system that isn't working the way you need it to, or you're not using a system at all. We actually have a full migration team that'll help you kind of move your information over into PracticePanther. So that way you can kind of get launched and started. And then we even have some kind of initial templates, like we have an initial template for intake forms as well as for workflows. So that way, when you are launching, you're not launching with a blank canvas that you have to get started in. Having kind of things already launched, like an invoice that you can customize or a workflow that you can kind of add and remove different tasks, make it feel a little bit more, approachable in accomplishing some of these tasks, because it does take time to set up your legal management for it to run right. You want to have your processes in place. And then once all of that is set up, you're actually going to end up gaining more time than you spent setting it up in all of the efficiencies kind of as you go along. And kind of one of those examples, a lot of our customers are kind of then implementing some payment plans and payment and processing kind of within PracticePanther. And they're finding that they're getting paid so much faster, so they have more access to cash flow. And so that's been a great, benefit for their firm. So there are a lot of unique ways I think practice management can help improve productivity, improve profit margins and things like that outside of just, maybe the one-off things you think about. Awesome. And so let's kind of get to the main meat of the subject today. We're addressing trends and that small firms need to embrace, their overall approach and way to stay competitive in the market. We've debunked a couple advantages of large firms and even some myths about smaller firms. So we wanted to focus on now actionable strategies that can propel your firm forward. From embracing these 4 key tactics, you can find ways to improve scalability at your firm. And let's talk about effectively competing with these larger practice areas. And so I wanted to kind of start by kind of setting a benchmark here. And as we talked about a little earlier, client expectations have definitely evolved, with clients increasingly interested in being more involved in their legal process. Small firms must find a way to really engage their clients effectively without exhausting your resources on these follow-ups, on updates, and things like that. So I want you to kind of pause and think about new clients coming to your firm. How much back and forth is involved in getting relevant information or collecting documents, scheduling appointments, following up, confirming appointments, discussing your processes and what the expectations are, and even reminding clients the important thing, when and how to pay. So if new clients are always calling you or waiting for your office to open to get this kind of information, and to ask you kind of basic FAQ type questions, you're almost doing yourself a disservice and your staff a disservice, because your CRM and your client portal and flexible services can all handle that for you. When you transition to kind of digital communication, it fosters a more engaged client base, and you don't have to constantly be available during or even after office hours, which we all don't want to be in, engaging with people after office hours. And so let's talk about your tech stack for a second and services that you're currently maybe providing your clients, or things that you consider if you're not. And First, I wanted to start with your CRM because it really helps manage and organize the wealth of information and interactions between you and your current customers, as well as potential clients. So the primary goal of a CRM is to improve relationships with your clients. It's in the name, customer relationship management. And so in addition to managing client relationships more efficiently, it really kind of helps your law firm personalize the service. So with PracticePanther CRM, for instance, you can maintain detailed client profiles. You can track interactions between your clients and your staff. You can manage follow-ups and deliver really this highly personalized service. Depending on the information that's important for your firm, you can track client relationships, lead sources, referrals, how happy your clients are with your services, personal information even. Birthdays are important, religious celebrations, and even important notes from past conversations. CRMs, they help you organize and access relevant, important client information anywhere, whether you're on your mobile phone, you're at your laptop in your office. And so highly recommend kind of utilizing and leaning into your CRM. And the next one, kind of reiterating the use of the client portals. It is available to all PracticePanther customers, and your firm can embrace this kind of modern communication tool because it provides security, which is important, as Brad, I think, will agree. It also provides that transparency and access that clients are looking for these days. Portals help improve communication, reduce that administrative burden for your staff, because clients can independently manage their case. They can upload relevant documents, confirm appointments, and even, they can pay their bills right there online. Portals save hours from phone calls, emails about what to do next or what to expect. Clients can log in really anytime, 24/7 to get this information. I've been working with a bankruptcy client specifically. We've talked about it would take months, as they get new clients onboarded. It would take them months to get documents, the relevant information they need. And so when they switch to client portals, utilizing a workflow and a task list to kind of let the client know what comes next, they saved over 10 hours each month. And what took, a couple months of back and forth turned into actually a couple different weeks. And so, that client portal can really be a huge benefit for our customers and for those firms. And then kind of that last one is going to be all about the flexible services that you can provide for your customers. Offering payment plans or subscription-based services are really big right now. You have probably heard a lot of lawyers talk about subscription-based services. You can also use modern communication tools in addition to client portal. Texting or even video conferencing is really great. PracticePanther can help your law firm provide this flexible billing and payment options that we talked about, including the payment plans. Mobile accessibility and texting is a great perk, along with calendar scheduling, appointment reminders, e-signature, not having to come into the office to sign a form that doesn't need to maybe be a wet signature. And then even offering kind of that hybrid working environment for your staff, they can be maybe a little bit more accessible and available for your client as well. And so flexible services have been really, really great for small law firms. And the next one is really all about achieving bigger results kind of with your smaller team. Brad and I have kind of talked several times in the presentation about how you can lean into your small team for big results. And in talking with small firms across the country, I think the first thing to kind of make clear is there's a lot of attorneys out there who feel that maybe they can't accomplish more because their team is already too small. You already feel kind of overwhelmed with what you're doing. And limited resources are a thing for a lot of small businesses to overcome. And I would argue that many times it's not what firms need more. You don't necessarily need more full-time staff. And that's kind of goes to that larger budget we talked about for the larger firms. It's more about efficiently managing your current staff and how they're operating. But what we're seeing, especially when it comes to kind of processes and your workflow organization, is that 80% of law firms think they spend too much time on admin tasks and not enough time practicing the law. So regardless of the number of employees that you have, your staff is spending too much time on this low-level, repetitive work, which is inefficient and is costing your firm money. The question is, how do we improve staff efficiency? And related to that, attorneys focusing on their efficiency, they're spending just 2.3 hours a day on billable work. So imagine if you and your staff members could work or even bill for another 2 hours each day. What does that translate into without having to maybe increase your staff in terms of efficiency? So how are these firms maybe achieving more? As you know, probably no surprise, they are turning into an investment on their tech stack with automation capability specifically. And we're seeing this across the board for small and mid-sized firms, that 90% of them are maintaining or increasing their technology budgets this year. And so that is a lot of money spending on, efficiency improvements through technology. And the key areas we kind of hear a lot of investment and resources is improving intake and automating your intake, tracking your time and making sure you're billing for that time, and improving overall client communication. That can really kind of take off a lot of the low level but important work that law firms need to focus in on. And another thing is, how can we automate more? More law firms are having resource constraints. They low-level redundant tasks, as I mentioned, are important, but they can be a waste of your time for your talented staff. So much so, McKinsey & Company actually found that up to 23% of lawyers' work and up to 69%, and that number was a little bit startling to me. I got 69% of paralegals' work could be automated. And a big part of that is actually document and contract templates. If you're not automating your contract templates or your document templates, you're missing out, because this simple automation has reported an 82% time savings when generating contracts and other legal documents. So, with a lean team and limited bandwidth, it can feel daunting to take on ambitious marketing or maybe client acquisition initiatives to counteract some of your competitors. However, with some of these right strategies in place, you can empower the smallest of firms to even make a big impact. And kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about before handing it back over to Brad is really embracing kind of this cloud-based management. And we've covered strategies for, maximizing efficiency and punching above your weight class. It's time to talk about the resources that can help put those strategies in action. And your tech stack plays a pivotal role in streamlining these processes. And so the right combination, it can really supercharge your ability to achieve big results. And so PracticePanther is designed, really with intuitive interfaces, robust functionality, and really seamless integrations to propel your firm into the future.
Hey, Libby, I'm curious, like with this stuff, where do you see like what's like the lowest hanging fruit, right? So like when a firm implements legal practice management software, like PracticePanther, for example, or others, like what are the biggest areas where they were maybe wasting time and you see like the immediate impact?
Absolutely. We find it kind of in two actually different areas. First is going to be intake, and it's a lot of that back and forth, the scheduling the calls, the emails, submitting the right documents, and getting the right information. And so when you can kind of automate those things, send you the task lists over to your client via the portal. So once they complete one task, it kind of immediately automates to the next one, and they know exactly what to do next. Kind of really takes off that low level work. Intake is super important. Obviously, and that's how business development. It's where you get new business and things like that. But automating some of those features are going to be really great, especially, as soon as someone kind of fills out a form on your website, that should automatically create something in your case management system. It's a brand new contact. It's a brand new case if you want it to do that, without you having to kind of add all that information in yourself. So intake's a good one. Billing is another great one. If you are still manually mailing out, printing, attaching PDFs to emails, there are better ways to go about billing when it comes to practice management. And, we've had several firms where it takes several days, and multiple people have now, had to send out case studies where it's gone down to maybe just one or two people. And in a matter of a couple of hours, they're billing all of their clients and customers. And so I think those are kind of the two areas where you can really focus in on. And some of kind of the different tech pieces that I wanted to highlight on this slide, it's really about being cloud-based. You can have those secure case files and client information, and it's accessible from any device. That's really the big one. Whether you're in a court that allows, has Wi-Fi access, you can have your devices on you and have access to basically your complete office online on your phone. Automatic updates are great. If you're working with on-prem servers, all about having to do those manual updates, but having these automatic updates are great for your backups, for seamless business stability. You can accommodate firm growth a little bit better and really enhance that collaboration. And then case management, having a centralized place for all of your case files, documents, and notes are really going to be important as well. Every staff member can access it. And so that way, if, a client calls in, it doesn't matter if it's an intake person or maybe it's just a law firm manager. They know what's happening in that case, and they know kind of how to kind of help answer the questions of that client. And the last two, we kind of talked a little bit about, time tracking and billing are going to really be again, centralized, synced across all devices is really great. You don't want to lose any of your billable hours. You want to make sure you have, high realization rates, that you're billing for the hours that you've worked. And that's going to be really, really big. And even on the billing and invoicing side, understanding kind of your accounts receivable, the overdue balances, and even that automation can kind of come in on reminders for your bill is almost due, your bill is due, hopefully not, but your bill's past due. Those kind of things are great because it may just take a few moments, but it's over and over. If you're working with, a couple dozen customers and clients, you have to do that for multiple of them. It just takes more time. And I'll kind of transition over to Brad and kind of talk a little bit more about security.
Yeah, I can handle this. So I think in today's environment, we see this all the time, that clients are going to want to know that their information is protected and it's sensitive. And so obviously a law firm kind of trades on reputation. That's how you win clients and maintain clients, by having a stellar reputation. And we've also seen clients or situations with law firms where if they break that trust because they've been hacked or things go wrong, that can spell kind of a doomsday scenario pretty quickly. So what we're trying to highlight here are just 4 things that are fundamental to have at any law firm, just in terms of like protecting sensitive information. So the first, and you've probably heard of all these before, but just reiterates it. So multi-factor authentication. It's a scenario where you log in beyond just your simple username and password. There might be another check, whether it's like an authenticator app or a text message, something else, so that you can get in and protects kind of criminals from getting in and accessing your systems. The secondary check in the top right this is related to kind of wire transfer fraud and cybercrime. So the 2 biggest areas of claims for law firms in terms of cyber insurance are ransomware and extortion, which the multi-factor authentication can handle. And then the second one is wire transfer fraud, or what's called social engineering. So just the simple act of when somebody asks you to send money, calling them up and getting a verbal and making sure, like I call Libby and say, hey, Libby, do you really want me to wire this money to this account? And if she says, no, actually, that wasn't me, then I know I'm not going to send out $100,000 out the door. We've seen like a ridiculous amount of claims, unfortunately, from simple mistakes like this, and firms are out loads of money. And so a simple secondary check goes a long way. And then regular training. This sounds so basic, but even with small firms, if you can require them to sit through, like a 1-hour webinar or something, a couple times a year, it just reinforces to the organization how critical this is, and for your employees and staffers to be operating kind of with their antennas up and to make sure they don't get duped. And then lastly, it's a back it all up with insurance. Like policies these days for cyber, the barrier to entry and cost is really pretty low, especially for kind of lower limit policies. Talking $50 a month maybe for a small firm, maybe even less than that for small limits. So back it up with insurance. Good lawyering goes a long way in terms of preventing malpractice, but a lot of times, no matter what you do, you can't really stop these criminals. So just a basic policy adds a lot of value.
Awesome. And you kind of mentioned a couple examples. I didn't know if there's something maybe small law firms should look out for when it comes to, when they're being targeted. Is there a certain type of scam that seems to be the top right now, phishing or phone calls, or what's the thing to be nervous about?
Yeah, the one that we see, strange enough, like one of our carriers who insures thousands of small law firms. It's funny, like their claims in the past year are not related to traditional malpractice. They're actually related to people getting duped. So the biggest exposure tends to be like real estate firms, and sometimes plaintiff firms, like PI firms, who are who are directing money in terms of wire transfers. So anytime money is changing hands and the law firm is at the middle of it, either actually sending the money themselves or telling another party where the money should go, they're at risk, right? So like it's just so easy for these cyber criminals to sit there and monitor. You know, I don't know how they do it. They probably have some technology that sees when money's about to change hands, and the tone of the email emulates the law firm. So the recipient thinks it's completely legitimate. Everybody's trying to move fast and just get things crossed off their list, and all of a sudden money's out the door. So the wire transfer fraud is really, really scary. The ransomware and extortion, you know, I would say that just by having good upfront security, having a good legal practice management software, that having it be cloud-based, that stuff goes a long way in terms of not having to cut a check for $500,000 so that your firm's information doesn't get blown up. But again, ransomware and extortion is the biggest one, and then social engineering, wire transfer fraud, kind of the same thing. That's number two. That second category, I think, is probably where firms can do a lot of things just to mitigate, again, just the secondary phone call or having your antennas up.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice little segue then, kind of talking about, you know, security a little bit within PracticePanther. As you mentioned, your law firms, you're storing really sensitive and valuable information about companies and individuals. And so security, as Brad mentioned, is going to be really, really important. And, you know, that information is very valuable, which is why people are going after it. And so within PracticePanther, you know, we want to offer that MFA as well. The multi-factor authentication is huge with data encryption and really automatic updates in the cloud. We use Microsoft Azure, so you know we're right up there with the big guys. So the information is secure both in transit and at rest, as they say. And so even you know, when it comes to document settings, you know, there are things within PracticePanther that you can take even additional securities on, you know, storing sensitive files and limiting file sharing capabilities and accessibility. And even user roles, you know, you can get down to custom user roles where you can decide which people in your firm can view things, which ones can edit things, which ones can delete. You know, so there are a lot of different kind of security settings and roles that you can set up in PracticePanther, which is really nice having that customized access as well. And I'll let Brad take it from here. We want to
Sure.
talk about, yeah.
Yeah, I can do this. So in terms of establishing a foundation for risk reduction, you know, as we've seen our clients kind of grow, it becomes more and more critical to have, you know, a strong foundation and things in place to reduce your risk and make sure that the firm's protected as it continues to grow. So in terms of what's required and what's at risk, I mean, risk for a law firm is essentially everywhere, unfortunately. You know, it ranges from, and it's probably the same way with any kind of running any kind of business, but for a law firm in particular, it ranges from employment risk for, you know, one of your employees claiming wrongful termination or harassment, even if it was outside of your firm and it comes back at you, or the paralegal, you know, driving to the post office and getting into a car accident and saying like, hey, you told me to go to the post office, so this is on you. I need you to cover me. To the more traditional things people think of like malpractice or cyber that we've talked so much about. The bigger the firm, the bigger the target on your back. So when you think about like what your current revenues are and current employees, like we'll have conversations with our firms all the time as they continue to grow about what the right limits are and what kind of policies you should get in place. So although small firms, as I just said, are still a big target for cyber criminals, by and large, as the firm gets bigger, as you have more clients, as you're transacting more and more deals, the risk tends to elevate. So having the right kind of limits, having the right kinds of policies becomes more and more critical. On that third column, we get asked all the time about like what should I have in place? You know, what's really at risk here? So what we try to tell people is it's not a simple formula about, you know, if you have this many attorneys and you're in this area of practice and you're in this state, then here's the right limit to buy. What you really want to think about is just take a step back and say, how likely are my clients to sue me? Be realistic about it. And which clients could give me the most problems? And if things really went off the rails, like how bad could this get, right? Like how much could they sue me for? Sometimes it's hard to insure yourself against protecting against the ultimate doomsday scenario. But if you think to yourself that, you know, Acme Construction could sue me for $10 million. Maybe I don't need to carry a $10 million policy. Maybe I should carry one for at least five. And a good broker can help you kind of navigate that. And then lastly, in your current risk assessment, it's good to kind of think about what your practice areas are. So statistically, somebody who's doing criminal law is going to have far less liability than somebody who's doing, plaintiff class action or securities, or even dealing with like marijuana has been a big deal and kind of tough to insure. So a professional like your insurance provider or your insurance broker can help talk you through all that. But in terms of your overall risk assessment, your practice area matters, the size of your firm matters, how risky, so to speak, your clients are matters, and then going back to that first column, like what's your appetite for risk? How much do you really want to insure it, or do you want to just go bare and not insure it at all? Which we do see some firms doing, and then they often come back to us and said, "I should have had insurance because that wasn't as bulletproof as I thought." But again, we can help you out with that. If you have a good broker, they can help you out with that too in terms of risk. And then you can look inwardly also to just kind of assess what your exposures really are from all different kinds of areas.
I think that segues nicely into this one for you as well.
Yeah, so sure. So we get asked this all the time, like as the firm grows or even when they're starting, what policies do I need to get in place? Because it's super confusing. So these are the ones that we see people buying kind of in order in terms of importance. So professional liability is often called malpractice or errors and omissions coverage. This is claims that come up in the course of providing your professional services, right? Like the old-fashioned lawyering, blowing statutes, or failure to apply the law, things like this. Conflicts of interest, that's malpractice insurance for professional liability. Cyber insurance, we've talked a lot about. The caveat on this is that you will see certain policies and that might have like network security and privacy as like an addition to something else that you have. It's not the same as buying standard cyber insurance as its own policy. I think people get comfortable thinking that they're protected, but it really stinks when something goes wrong, and the biggest exposures for law firms, you find out you have zero coverage for. So again, these policies are relatively cheap. It's just a good investment in protecting your firm to have some kind of cyber insurance. It's also called privacy insurance or cybersecurity. Workers' comp, statutory coverage if you have employees, at least statutory required in most states. Some places it's not. Some places you have to go through like your local state in terms of getting their coverage, but you probably should have workers' comp. And then a business owner's policy. For a lot of small firms that are working remote and they're working from their home, this isn't that big of a deal until you start thinking about that paralegal or somebody else who's driving on behalf of the firm. So a business owner's policy covers you for like general liability, like what would be traditional like slip and fall insurance at the office. Again, not that applicable for a lot of small firms. Or property insurance, like if your furniture gets ruined or even artwork, again, not as applicable anymore. Laptops are easily replaced now. But the big one is automotive. So you can get automotive coverage wrapped into your business owner's policy. And that's the motivating factor we see for a lot of small firms. And then number 5 is employment practices. So this is, as the firm continues to grow, you don't know everybody quite as well in their situations. Folks that you hire, this is wrongful termination, harassment, toxic work environment, things like this. Oftentimes we see claims from the person who least expected it. And something comes up and all of a sudden things turn ugly, things turn emotional. It's really brutal. So having EPL or employment practices liability insurance as the firm grows becomes increasingly important too. But those are the big ones. And again, we can help talk you through any of that.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of really nice to see the breakout like this, to understand the risk that's out there. And then, small firms can determine where and how they should be covered. But, if you have any questions about any of these, we'll have a slide for you. You can get in touch with Brad as well. And just kind of a quick way, focus on a few things that you can leverage PracticePanther for to kind of help your small firm compete. We discussed several important options kind of in this presentation, CRM, client portal, subscription-based services, payment plans, things like that. And Brad, we actually talked about it a little bit. This is kind of on the part of intake. So it's great that you kind of brought up that question a little bit earlier. As there's just a couple different processes and efficiencies that I wanted to kind of bring up as it relates to intake, and starting kind of with that automated form. as I mentioned, you have one of these built out ready for you, but it's super easy. You don't have to know any coding, anything like that to build your own intake forms. You can build as many of them as you like. So maybe one for each practice area or one for each lead source, depending on if you do some marketing and advertising. And you can actually drag and drop the different questions that you kind of want to bring in, which has been really great. It then automatically creates a contact and a case for you within your practice management question. And you can ask any kinds of questions. You can ask about case details. You can ask about, familial relationships if you need to do that. But one of the questions I recommend, no matter your practice areas, including it's okay to text, because you definitely want to make sure that you get that permission to text. And then that it's a really great way to reach out and connect for those quick, communication needs, which obviously leads us into text messaging. Over 20 billion are sent every day globally. And that number's surprised me a little bit. 20 billion feels like a lot of texts, but it's the perfect tool for those quick back and forth. And nice benefit is you never have to leave the PracticePanther platform or use your personal phone to ever send a text again. So no more kind of after hours receiving texts on your personal cell phone. It all goes immediately into the platform, which kind of then brings you into your workflows. And these help you automate those specific tasks. There's so many different processes that you can probably repeat that you're doing on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. You can turn them into a workflow. You can get a daily agenda every morning, and what tasks need to be accomplished. You can even see over there on the far right, you can get different notifications and kind of set up how you want to get these task notifications. And then, by kind of adopting practice management across your firm's operations, specifically on intake here, you're streamlining for that competitive edge. You're trying to get more with less. And plus, as we mentioned earlier, PracticePanther provides a dedicated support to ensure you kind of understand all the benefits that are available in your case management and that you're utilizing them kind of to the best of your ability. And so, we're building kind of strong partnerships here. As I mentioned kind of at the beginning, that we've worked with Embroker for the past several years to really build value and support when it comes to covering our current customers. And so we'll share a link on the end of the slide. You also get a link in your email about, 15 minutes. You can see what Embroker can do for you. And I didn't know, Brad, if you wanted to kind of have anything else you wanted to add here.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd add, and I guess we should have brought this on here, but part of the way we underwrite and our products for qualified firms is we believe that firms using elite practice management software are better risk than most, and our underwriters do too. We're kind of the only ones in the industry that do this. And so if you're using PracticePanther, you actually get a better rate. All the rates are filed in each of the individual states that the law firm operates in. It's required for regulatory purposes. And as part of our filing with each state, we have it very clearly marked on there that if you're using PracticePanther specifically, you actually get a better deal because we believe those firms are better risk and better run law firms. So that's kind of cool too.
Awesome. And then just kind of wrapping it up here, Brad, I didn't know if you wanted to kind of add anything to the presentation.
No, thanks everybody for the time. I realize there's just a couple minutes left, but in closing, we'd say that these four things, right, are key deals in terms of running a law firm. So near and dear to my heart, proactive risk management goes a long way in terms of mitigating claims, and having legal practice management software certainly speaks to that. Having insurance on the back end, I think, also helps. And then Libby, obviously, as you mentioned, small firms can have big strengths if they position themselves the right way using technology and kind of getting the right processes in place, and just taking a few minutes to set up the right things, and whether it's intake or texting or anything else like this can certainly go a long way. And then you can speak to tech stack adoption. Libby is up your alley, so I'll let you close it out.
Yeah, and I think that's a well-chosen tech stack, not only improves, as we talked about, your operational efficiency and productivity, it also enhances, client communication and your overall service delivery, which in the end, will boost your overall competitiveness. Your clients will understand it and know that you're utilizing or working for them. And not only will they stay with you, but they're probably going to make a referral for you as well. That's really what the interests you, and asking for assistance. One of the biggest takeaways to have, especially you solo firms out there, is that you're not in it alone. You have experts here to support you, both at PracticePanther and Embroker. I work with bar associations across the country, and they have teams that are there to support you. Be sure follow both Embroker and PracticePanther on social media. You'll actually stay updated on some of these industry trends and new feature rollouts and the things that you've got to kind of pay attention to. So with that, we are kind of wrapping our presentation. I know we stayed kind of the whole time. I really appreciate everybody's time during their lunch hour. If you have any questions, you are welcome to find me on LinkedIn, Libby Funky Luff on LinkedIn, or Libby at PracticePanther.com. If you have any questions, if you have any questions about PracticePanther or want to kind of see it for yourself, type in PracticePanther.com/demo, and you can kind of book time with a practice management specialist to really talk about your firm specifically. And then for Embroker, you can head up to PracticePanther.com/partners/Embroker, and that'll have all the details kind of related on getting your firm set up for LPL insurance and kind of really any other security insurance needs that you might have. Awesome. And I'm not seeing any questions. And so, like I mentioned, appreciate your time. Brad, I appreciate you joining us and giving us your expertise for over the last hour. And
Yeah, thanks for having me.
yeah, I look forward to doing it again.
All right. Thanks, Libby. Thanks, everybody.